Hey, what's going on, third grade Potomac Hawks? This is Mr. Nichols. I'm really glad I get to see you this way, but bummed that the school year kind of ended abruptly like it did. In a minute, I'm going to read where Miss Mantle left off yesterday. But first, I want to remind you that today is our Spirit Day, so make sure you wear any of your Potomac spirit wear or Potomac colors to show that Potomac pride. Miss Mantle left off yesterday, and Ralph made it off the steps. However, he did it in the most ungraceful kind of way, and he ended up landing in the shrub. But everything was okay, the bike's okay, and I'm going to start where she left off. I guess I showed you, thought Ralph grimly, as he mounted his motorcycle and sped off down the open road, off into the dark and scary night. So long, brothers, sisters, cousins. So long, Uncle Lester. So long, Matt. Ralph was on his way. Vroom! Ralph bounced along the uneven driveway to the mountain highway, where he quickly discovered that one of the ribbons of concrete pressed smooth by passing tires made a good highway for a mouse. He made an even more exciting discovery: gravity. With a good fast start, he could coast downhill with amazing speed. The halls of the Mountain View Inn were never like this. Ralph sped through a night that fulfilled his dreams of freedom. It was a night of danger and adventure. Once, when Ralph was frightened by the headlights of an approaching car, he swerved to the side of the road, where he and his motorcycle were caught in the backdraft of a passing car and tumbled about like old gum wrappers and tossed into the weeds. Afterward, Ralph was alert when he heard a car approaching, and got off the road and clung to a weed until the car roared past. He was exhilarated by the test of his skill. Toward dawn, logging trucks began to rumble down the mountain, shaking the earth as they came. Ralph never had seen anything so terrifying as those great double-tired monsters with logs lashed to their truck beds, barreling down the center of the highway, and he knew the time had come to hide for the day. He ate some dusty weed seeds, drank dew, slept under a leaf, and started off once more at nightfall, toward the sound of the bugle. Between cars and trucks, Ralph tore along down the highway through the shadows of the night. This ride was the freedom he had dreamed of. Speed without effort. Once the thought crossed his mind that if he should ever want to return to the Mountain View Inn, he could never make it back up the mountain under his own power. What a silly thought. Why should he ever want to go back to the inn when he could travel this way? On the third night of Ralph's journey, as darkness faded and the pine trees gave way to scrub oak, Ralph found himself out in the open, where there were no sheltering shadows. A milk truck rattled past on its way to the Mountain View Inn. Blackbirds greeted the dawn with bursts of gurgling song, and not far away a rooster crowed. A pheasant flew low across the road, startling Ralph and causing him to collide with a piece of gravel. The road, which now followed an irrigation ditch. Ooh, the word irrigation. We know what that means from our Ancient Civilizations unit. Irrigate means to water. So once the irrigation ditch had leveled off, and Ralph had to produce his own power. Vroom! As Ralph putted along his motorcycle, daylight made him uneasy. He was looking for a place to hide when the notes of the bugle, so close he felt as if he might shatter him, burst forth in the lively morning tune. Before they died away, laughter and shouts filled the air. Medium-sized boys and girls, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Ralph had reached his destination. Ralph wished old Matt could see him as he rode off the road and bounced onto the gravel lane that crossed a small bridge over the irrigation ditch. Ahead lay a number of low, weathered buildings, surrounded by lawn and shade by walnut trees. Boys and girls were washing their faces in wash basins set on benches. A big brown dog, barking furiously, came bounding toward Ralph, who stopped, frozen with terror. The dog stopped too. So suddenly he nearly sat down in the gravel. He recovered himself and approached, snuffling with his wet black nose. Ralph sat with his paws clutching his handle grips in fear, while the horrible black nose sniffed him. "And just who do you think you are?" asked the dog. "Quiet, Sam," yelled a boy. "A mouse." Ralph felt very, very meek. Sam eyed Ralph with curiosity. "Where did you get that motorcycle?" he wanted to know. "A boy gave it to me." Ralph was beginning to feel slightly braver, but only slightly. That big dog could gobble a mouse in one gulp. But not if I hang onto my motorcycle, thought Ralph, feeling that his courage had not deserted him entirely. A dog would not eat a motorcycle. "No kidding," said Sam. "A mouse-sized motorcycle. Where'd you come from?" "The Mountain View Inn." "That run-down place?" said Sam. "I'm not surprised the mice are deserting it. Where are you going?" "Well, here, I guess," said Ralph. "I followed the sound of the bugle. I wanted to be near medium-sized children and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches." "Sorry," said Sam. "You can't come in here. I'm the watchdog of Happy Acres Camp, and it's my job to protect the camp." "Aw, now, come on," said Ralph, who was beginning to see that Sam was not really as ferocious dog. "I'm just a mouse." Sam looked uncomfortable. Obviously, he was a dog that liked to please everyone. "I would let you in if I could, but my orders are to keep out anyone who doesn't belong here." Ralph hunched down on his motorcycle. "Please, I'm just a teeny little brown mouse. Nobody would even notice me." Sam's honest brown face looked worried. "No," he said at last, "I can't let you in. I have my orders from Aunt Jill and Uncle Steve in the camp office. They are in charge here." "I've had a long, hard trip," said Ralph. "I'm tired and I'm hungry." Sam looked so worried that Ralph pressed his advantage. "You know, boys like mice. They would be glad to have me." Sam looked back toward the white building under the walnut trees. Then he looked down at Ralph. "I tell you I can't do it," he said. "If I let you come in, I'd be breaking my orders. I'm already in trouble because a car came along in the middle of the night and dumped a box of kittens. It got away before I could rouse anybody." "Kittens?" squeaked Ralph in horror. "I have the worst time with kittens." Sam's voice was gloomy. "People are always dumping kittens here because they know girls will beg their parents to let them take them home." "Very many kittens?" asked Ralph, who was feeling nervous once more. "Too many," said Sam. "We already had 3 kittens that belonged here, and the other night 6 more were dumped. And once they are here, I'm not allowed to chase them. I'll tell you, it isn't fair. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's kittens. Silly little things with no sense of responsibility." Sam's troubles made Ralph feel cocky once more. "If you're a watchdog, watch me," he said, and taking a deep breath, he shot between Sam's legs and out the other side before a surprised dog could turn around. Ralph swerved around a green walnut lying on the ground and into a patch of weeds beside a nearby building. "Come back here!" barked Sam. "You aren't supposed to do that." He began to snuffle around in the weeds. Ralph had not expected to be snuffled for. He had thought that once he was inside the camp, Sam would give up. Sam growled and moved his nose around in the weeds like a doggy vacuum cleaner. Unable to ride, Ralph pushed his motorcycle farther back into the weeds. The wet black nose parted the stalks, but Ralph was saved by a gopher hole. He dragged his motorcycle into its shelter. "Oh, no, you don't," growled Sam, and he began to dig with his powerful front paws. Dirt began to fly. Pulling his motorcycle after him, Ralph waded farther back through the loose dirt into the gopher hole. Faster went the paws. "Hey, everybody! Sam's after a gopher!" a boy yelled, and Ralph could feel feet pounding on the ground overhead. "Go get him, Sam!" urged another boy. "Sick 'em, Sam!" Everyone seemed to be saying it at once. "You're being mean to the gopher," protested a girl. Several girls' voices began to yell, "Go, gopher, go!" Faster and faster flew the paws with their strong toenails. Sam was panting now. Ralph pushed farther and farther back into the gopher run until a disagreeable voice ahead of him said, "And where do you think you're going?" "Eek!" squeaked Ralph, face to face with the owner of the gopher run. He hastily pushed his motorcycle, which he had been pulling, ahead of him for protection. "Beat it," said the gopher, squinting at Ralph. "I didn't dig this tunnel for mice." The digging paws were coming closer. "Attaboy, Sam!" shouted the boys. "Go, gopher, go!" shouted the girls. Even the gopher looked uneasy. "Please," pleaded Ralph, "save me from that beast." The gopher was more interested in saving himself. Already, he was beginning to move farther down the run. "You can stay until that dog stops digging, and no longer," he said, and he fled off into the network of tunnels. Not far away, a bell clanged. "Breakfast! Chow time!" yelled the boys, and the feet that went pounding off in the direction of the bell shook the ground overhead. The paws stopped churning, but overhead Ralph could hear the sound of panting. Sam poked his fearsome snout into the gopher hole for one last sniff before he trotted off for breakfast. "Whew!" gasped Ralph, leaning against his motorcycle. He had pictured camp as a place where boys would bring him peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, not this dark, dusty tunnel inhabited by a grouchy gopher. All right, and on to chapter 3. So, I believe Miss Jones is going to read chapter 3 for you tomorrow. But that was a pretty exciting chapter right there, I think. For our writing response today, our optional writing response, I'd like you to write a few sentences telling what dangers Ralph has faced on his adventure so far. So there's a whole lot we could probably write about because Ralph's always getting himself into trouble, it seems. Well, it was nice seeing everybody. I will see you next week sometime to continue reading. But tomorrow, Miss Jones has you with chapter 3. Bye.